At 9:06 on Tuesday morning, your employee badge stops working. You try it again. Nothing. A security guard you greeted for 8 years suddenly studies his desk. Inside the conference room, someone slides a folder toward you. Your job no longer exists. Caleb immediately opens a job website. His hands are already shaking. You do not open anything. The strange part is not that you lost your job. The strange part is realizing you do not urgently need another one. Your account can support 11 ordinary months. Nobody standing beside you understands why you are not panicking. 8 years earlier, your bank account held $2,347. Your student loan still contained $7,800. Your salary was $52,000 at a regional logistics company. Caleb started the same morning with nearly identical pay. Both of you were told ambition would determine where you ended up. Nobody explained that ambition could point toward different destinations. Caleb wanted his progress to become visible quickly. You wanted small emergencies to stop feeling like disasters. Your first automatic transfer was $300. The amount looked too small to change a life. It looked large enough to ruin Friday night. On Thursday, you nearly cancelled it. You opened the app 3 different times. Friday morning arrived before confidence did. The money left before fear could vote. Caleb used his first bonus to celebrate his parents' anniversary. He paid for everyone and refused to split the bill. For one night, his spending looked exactly like love. Caleb was not foolish. He believed money should improve the present before the future could steal it. You divided your bonus between debt and savings. Nobody congratulates the person who quietly pays off a loan. At 27, both of you received the same $6,000 raise. Caleb moved into an apartment with a rooftop view. He invited everyone before his furniture arrived. You increased your automatic transfer by half the raise. Nothing about your apartment improved. Nothing about your Toyota became more impressive. At work, someone asked whether the car belonged to your father. The joke followed you into the parking garage. That evening, rain followed you into a BMW dealership. The salesman called the monthly payment manageable. You did not ask what manageable meant for the next 6 years. You paid $250 to reserve the car. For 20 minutes, the decision felt like relief. At a gas station, the full price finally became visible. The car would cost more than 3 years of your transfers. You returned the next morning and cancelled it. The dealership kept the deposit. You lost $250 trying to avoid feeling behind. The Toyota started anyway. You drove home without music. That mistake became more useful than pretending you never wanted the car. Quiet wealth began with decisions that still hurt. By 28, your emergency fund reached $12,000. The number remained abstract until the dentist said $1,600. 2 years earlier, that bill would have required debt. Now one number changed without changing the month. Money did not make the problem disappear. It stopped the problem from multiplying. You still bought groceries that weekend. Nobody notices the month groceries stop feeling dangerous. Maya called from an airport during a storm. Her airline refused to cover a hotel. The last nearby room cost $480. You booked it before she finished explaining. Maya promised to repay you after payday. You told her to sleep. For several minutes, Maya cried inside the hotel elevator. She was not crying about the room. She was crying because someone could say yes without fear. The first day you feel wealthy rarely happens inside a bank. It happens when the phone rings and you do not fear the emergency. Caleb still believed money was meant to be lived. You were beginning to believe money was meant to protect life. Caleb bought memories while you bought options. At 31, your combined savings and investments quietly crossed $100,000 for the first time. You had imagined that reaching the number would somehow make your entire life feel immediately different. Instead, the upstairs neighbor dropped something heavy, and yesterday's soup continued turning inside the microwave. Nobody called to congratulate you because nobody knew anything worth congratulating had happened. The next morning, you entered work wearing the same jacket and carrying the same repaired backpack. For several minutes, being completely unnoticed after reaching 6 figures felt strangely disappointing. Then you realized anonymity protected your progress from comparison, pressure, requests, and unnecessary explanations. Your money was growing quietly because attention had never been deposited into the account. Then the market fell 24%, and quiet progress suddenly became impossible to trust. 6 years of careful transfers appeared to reverse themselves during several ordinary and increasingly sleepless weeks. On Thursday night, you opened the banking app 3 times before midnight and twice afterward. At 1:14, your thumb found the button that could sell everything and end the uncertainty. The decision looked responsible because fear is extremely skilled at speaking in a reasonable voice. You closed the app, reopened it, and discovered that the fear had remained exactly where you left it. Before sunrise, you placed the phone inside a drawer because discipline sometimes looks like removing the decision. Friday morning arrived before confidence did, and the automatic investment left before fear could vote. You did not feel brave when you heard the notification because you still wanted the money back. Staying invested did not feel intelligent until long after the moment intelligence was required. Caleb sold most of his retirement investments during the same frightening week. His parents' roof had started leaking, and every storm placed another bucket inside their home. He could not watch their house deteriorate while his investments lost money he could use immediately. Caleb's choice was not foolish because compassion under pressure rarely arrives with perfect financial timing. He had optimized his life for today because today contained people he genuinely loved. You had optimized for tomorrow because tomorrow had frightened you since your first small account balance. Neither of you was completely right, and neither of you was completely wrong. The market eventually recovered slowly enough to reward patience without making patience feel heroic. When your balance returned, you felt relief instead of pride because you remembered how close you came to selling. Quiet wealth was not proof that you never became afraid. It was proof that fear did not always decide. At 33, your father's doctor called while you were standing inside an almost empty grocery store. The surgery was considered routine, but recovery would require 6 weeks of daily help. Your father immediately insisted he could manage alone because needing help embarrassed him more than pain. Your company offered family leave, but every day away would be completely unpaid. Caleb studied the form and admitted that 6 weeks without income would destroy his household budget. 6 years earlier, missing one paycheck would have destroyed your budget too. Now the decision took one evening, 2 calculations, and a sleepless conversation with yourself. By sunrise, you signed the form before your fear could rename love as financial irresponsibility. You spent 6 weeks cooking meals your father repeatedly claimed he did not need. You drove him to appointments on Tuesday afternoons when you would normally have been answering emails. You learned which television programs he watched when the house became too quiet. You discovered that he always made tea during commercial breaks and always forgot where he placed it. He showed you photographs and told stories he had never considered important enough to share. One afternoon, he fell asleep beside you inside a hospital recovery room. For several minutes, nothing financial happened, and nothing in your life felt more valuable. That quiet room was what thousands of invisible transfers had actually been building toward. No promotion could have returned those 6 weeks after your father no longer needed them. Nobody at work saw what your savings purchased because time leaves no receipt people can admire. They only saw an employee disappearing from important meetings while Caleb accepted more responsibility. Some people assumed your career had stalled because they could only measure movement toward the office. You returned 6 weeks later with less cash, less momentum, and considerably more certainty. You finally understood that the account was not a scoreboard proving you had won. It was stored permission to help, wait, leave, and choose without immediately explaining yourself. 2 years later, the company eliminated your position before you finished your first coffee. Caleb accepted the first serious job offer 10 days later because his obligations could not wait. The salary was lower, the commute was longer, and the work demanded weekends he wanted with his parents. He called the job temporary, but expensive lives have a way of making temporary decisions permanent. You received a higher paying offer during the same week and almost accepted it immediately. For one evening, you imagined the larger home, newer car, and respect the salary could purchase. The following morning, you drove to the company before signing because contracts rarely show the life surrounding them. The commute took 73 minutes before the working day had officially begun. At 7:18, the office was already full of people behaving as though they were late. A manager ate breakfast standing up while answering 2 phones and apologizing to someone at home. You recognized a life you could become extremely successful at enduring. You almost signed anyway because a large salary can make fear sound responsible. You called the recruiter, declined the offer, and spent 3 days wondering whether freedom had made you foolish. On the 4th morning, rent remained paid, groceries remained ordinary, and the Toyota still started. The 3rd company offered slightly less money, meaningful work, and every Wednesday completely free. Nobody noticed you were becoming wealthy because wealth looked like having nothing left to prove.